Hello fellow Megatenists. This video isn't about Megaten per se, but it regards someone who's an ally to Megaten, someone who's contributed to a lot of Megaten games including the last Bible series, Majin Tensei 1 and 2 and more, translator Tom. Besides Megaten, Tom has worked on various other projects. His latest work, Goemon 3, was initially met with praise, but a loud group of people found on websites like Reset Era found something they disliked and decided to lobby a complaint. For context, Goemon is a series known for its absurd humor, and by absurd I mean it really goes to some bizarre places, and that humor is what upset the people on Reset Era, Hardcore Gaming 101, and SNES Central. The offending thing was a single word, tranny, in reference to a transgender character, the original word being new half in the Japanese game. New half is slang for a transgender woman. Here's a Japanese transgender woman explaining her perspective on the meaning of new half. Much like any other sensitive word, if you try it out on someone who is trans, you could get any kind of reaction, from being told how awesome you are and how uptight everyone else is to getting your ass chewed out. This being Japan, both reactions are pretty rare, of course, and reactions tend to be more subtle, but they will definitely tend towards the strongly positive or negative. So the original word isn't actually a nice word, it's something that has a lot of depth to it, and the character is referring to herself as being a new half. The Japanese woman goes on to say this: "I personally would prefer not to have that term applied to myself, partially because it makes some assumptions about the immutable nature of gender, but also because it has a heavy connotation of being a performer for someone else's entertainment. Still, some trans women, especially the ones who are big into celebrity culture and contemporary traditional femininity, will use it. Sometimes unironically, sometimes as a reclaiming thing. They also say that using trans or transgender are more common and accepted. So based on this, we can assume that this is either a negative word used negatively, or in the context of the game, it could be more of a reclamation or a purposefully offensive use of the word. So what's the context of the game again? Goemon, as a series, as I said earlier, is known for its absurdist humor. One thing Goemon approaches is the concept of okama, or cross-dressing. Goemon's Great Adventure features a joke where a person described as a beauty asks for money, and at the end of the exchange with Goemon, turns out that they are cross-dressing, and that is the punchline. The villain of the game Goemon 3 is Bismaru, a character who looks nearly identical to Ibisumaru, one of the main cast. Bismaru is also cross-dressing, or perhaps they're transgender, and they are a crazy nun from the future. They return in Goemon's Great Adventure with the plot to revive the Prince of Hell to marry them and take over the world. Even just describing it, it's pretty easy to see that the game series is very absurd, and that is the source of the humor. That being said, the new half to tranny translation upset people. Primarily, Hardcore Gaming 101's creator, Kurt Kulada. Hardcore Gaming 101 is an old website from the long forgotten before YouTube era of the internet. They still make money through Patreon, where they rake in $2,000 a month. Kurt Kulada is also an author with a bunch of video game centric coffee table books. Looking through Hardcore Gaming 101 nowadays speaks to its amateur nature, as sources aren't often cited, different authors aren't all being vetted and checked to have a consistent or at least easy to digest way of writing, and the quality of content varies wildly, with this website generally not being easy or fun to navigate. Hardcore Gaming 101 was one of the people who spread misinformation regarding the situation the most. First, they condemned Tom and DDS translation as right-wingers, a weird insult that they toss around to a lot of people who disagree with them, myself included, and then they say the translation was bad. Then, after that, they do the research and find out that it's an accurate translation and decide that it's still wrong because offensive material shouldn't exist in a game. Also worth noting that even though Hardcore Gaming 101 is not very good at finding game info, Kurt himself admits to the series being humorous and specifically mentions this one time in an article specifically about Goemon, in which the game in question pokes fun at a crossdresser. But this one correctly translated line of dialogue isn't okay. So according to Hardcore Gaming 101, this correctly translated line of dialogue isn't okay. However, having villains named after suicide methods are okay. Kurt seems to have no stance on it in Ganbare Goemon Kira Kira Dochu Bokuga Dancer ni Natawake, where he just casually mentions the characters are references to famous suicide methods. A running theme for Kurt is inconsistency. They call DDS translation a group. It's not, it's just one person. They call him right wing. He's not. They say the translation is wrong, and it isn't. And then they insult and block everyone who disagrees. They have an SMT article, one which I read way back when I was new to the series and interested in learning more. And looking at it now, I can see that there's a lot of things they mention that are easy to fact check and verify as being incorrect. And it fits the theme of the website shifting between highly detailed descriptions at times and very vague and inaccurate at other times. This isn't really meant to be a character attack necessarily, but I want you to understand the context of who Kurt is and the business that he represents. There were other people who supported the rhetoric that Tom and DDS were indeed right-wing and that they were choosing to be wrong by leaving that word in. This translator also agrees with Kurt, but if you look at their description on Twitter, you'll find that they actually work for Kurt, so take that with a grain of salt. SNES Central also agreed with Kurt. SNES Central are dedicated to preserving games, primarily SNES games, as they are. SNES Central condemned the slur for being used and agreed it should be removed. Naturally, this runs counter to their preservationalist ideology. Clearly, they don't have Square's Tom Sawyer listed on their website. They have since deleted their Twitter following the criticism lobbied at their condemnation. A common narrative is that Tom wasn't harassed, or that there's a level of wrong that Tom has committed. Reviewing Tom's history as a translator, we can see that his work is very focused on being accurate and a direct translation. I don't think there's a situation where he chose to localize instead of translate. New half is a word that is multifaceted, as is the slang tranny. Some transgender people use it to describe themselves or in their community, much like some African Americans willingly use the N-word to describe themselves or that community, albeit without the hard R. I can't claim to have a better alternative for the use of the word new half. I am neither a Japanese expert nor am I an LGBTQ plus expert. There's been a fix uploaded to the internet somewhere which removes the joke, and whether or not that removes all offensive matter is up to your discretion. What I think needs to happen now is that we need to show Tom and DDS that we appreciate their work thus far. They've done it for free and they did it for passion, for love of the game. As a quick aside, I have offered to donate to Tom before just to thank him for his work, and he turned me down. I think that's a good testament to his goodwill. Please don't send hate to Kurt or any of the other offending parties, as we should not fight toxic behavior with more toxic behavior. I personally won't be supporting Kurt any longer, and I won't buy any of his books, and I clearly won't subscribe to his Patreon. With all that being said, again, I want to just to reiterate that my experience is only based on the research that I have conducted. So the opinion that I've formed about the term new half and the opinion that I have formed about the term tranny are purely opinions based on the stories I read online, which are linked in the sources, as well as some personal stories that I was able to pull from friends that I have who are transgender. Not being transgender myself, I also understand that I am not fully capable of understanding how being called tranny or calling yourself tranny might feel. And I apologize if you feel that this video in itself is offensive. I do, though, want to hear what you guys think about the situation. Who do you think was in the right? Who do you think was in the wrong? If history should be redacted in the way that Hardcore Gaming 101 wants, or if maybe we have to find alternatives that are less offensive, if possible, for something such as crass humor. You could also share your experiences if you have any in the comments below. I think that in general, the fan base that follows me tend to be a safe space, and I hope that people can conduct themselves with a modicum of decorum. That's it for the video. Goodbye, fellow Megatenists. Bye.